Russell is coming in. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Alexis.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Alexis.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I would like to call our meeting to order this morning
Good morning.
at 7:01 and a half. Our Toastmaster of the day today will be Steve Smith. Before we turn the meeting over to Steve, what I'd like to do is ask Beth if she would please give our invocation this morning.
Yes, I felt this was appropriate for what is going on in the world today. So, dear God, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Beth. This morning, to piggyback on what Beth was saying, there's a lot of things that are going on in our country. I know with our COVID and everything else. And I thought this morning, normally we begin with the pledge. And I thought I would share this with everyone this morning. So if you have your audio ready, we're going to begin. Instead of us sharing the pledge together, I would like us all just to join me with this.
The following words were spoken by the late Red Skelton on his television program as he related the story of his teacher, Mr. Laswell, who felt his students had come to think of the Pledge of Allegiance as merely something to recite in class each day. Now, more than ever, listen to the meaning of these words. I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. May I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one. Pledge, dedicate all my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United, that means that we've all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states, 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, and not from the leaders to the people. For which it stands one nation. One nation meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or quality of dealing fairly with others, for all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance, under God. Now, wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that's a prayer, and that it would be eliminated from schools too? God bless America.
With that, I would like to turn the meeting this morning over to our Toastmaster of the day, Steve Smith.
Thank you. I have a little bit of
housekeeping to do here. Did, excuse me, did Tracy Farrell sign in?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Good. That's one off my list. That's a grammarian. So now we need a timer. And you said Jackie was going to do that?
Jackie
Okay.
said that she would take care of that response.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and the other worked itself out. So I guess we're all set. All right, let's get right to it. My theme today was an analog brain and digital world. Now, I've talked about this before, but in light of having to do all this week, it seemed like a good time to revisit it. I have never been very fluent in computers or anything remotely related, which may sound like a contradiction because I'm an astronomer and I love what the computer will do to help me find objects with my telescope. That does not mean I know how it functions. Now, I'd like to give a little history and I'll get into this. I haven't worked officially since 2009, and back in 2009, computers were just starting to invade our life. So my exposure to them back then was minimal. And I'll launch into some of that later, but let's get into some of our meeting rules today. Our word master is Jen Zapla. Do we have a word of the day?
We do.
Ah.
So, Steve, based on your theme, I was trying to think of a good word to use, and I came across this interesting Forbes article that starts like this. The brain is neither analog nor digital, but works using a signal processing paradigm that has some properties in common with both. I won't read the entire article to you, but your word today will be paradigm, which is a standard perspective or set of ideas. It is a way of looking at something.
How do you spell that?
I will type it in the chat. It is Paradigm. Thank you.
Whatever.
I would say an excellent word. I used to love it in the 1990s.
I don't see that there, so I don't know how to spell it. Okay, our master today is Sylvia Batiste. Can you tell us of your duties? Oh, here it is.
Morning, everyone. This morning I will be counting as ums. I'm so glad to have this job, so I will not count myself. And pregnant pauses, and I'll give a report later. Thank you.
Okay. Our grammarian today is Tracy Farrell. Can you tell us what your duties are?
Good morning. As grammarian, I will not be looking at the Toastmasters paradigm of being a grammarian, but I'll be looking at the visions of the words that we create and the good use of our language. And I'm going to touch a little bit on the bad things if anything strikes me, but mostly I'm going to be looking at the visions of the words that we come up with.
Okay. Our quote master today is Larry Aker. You have a quote for us, Larry?
I do, Mr. Toastmaster, and I do agree with you that we are the subject of an invasion with all this computer stuff. You know, we've all experienced a paradigm shift in our lives, especially for the older members of the club. I have a bit of a deep quote, so you really have to listen carefully. The subjective conscious mind is an analog of the real world. It is built with a vocabulary whose terms are all analogs of behavior in the physical world. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our jester today is Mark Campus. Do you have a jest for us?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, good morning, everyone. I find when I'm the jester, I go out on the internet and I search for jokes, and I just invariably encounter the corniest of corny jokes. And unfortunately, nothing happened this week to shift that paradigm. But here goes. Here are a few about technology and computers. I know we're not supposed to apologize, but I'm really sorry in advance. Did you guys hear about the group of monkeys that share an Amazon account? They're primates. Did you know that beef stew is really a bad password because it's not strong enough?
Oh.
I'm not done yet. The hits just keep on coming. What is the biggest lie in the world? I agree to the terms and conditions. And lastly, how does a computer get drunk? It takes screenshots, Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh. Thank you. Our timer today is Jackie Kenny, who graciously stepped up. Can you tell us about your duties?
Good morning. You will see green when you have reached your minimum time. And for table topics, that would be a minute and a half. What's David saying over there? And yellow means start wrapping it up, and red means you're done, get out of there. The speeches will be timed according to each speech's parameters, and the evaluators will have 2 to 3 minutes to deliver their evaluation. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Next, and there's an off for you. Next, we have the Jester Master, who Marty Johnson decided, volunteered to fill in. Marty, can you tell us what you're going to do?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, everyone. As Gesture Master, I will be carefully watching the use of physical gestures, facial gestures, expressions, hand gestures, body movement, as people use them during the meeting to make points while they're speaking, and I will report back at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Our quiz master today is Carol Ann Halstead. Can you tell us what you will be doing?
I will be listening, and hopefully everyone else will be, because at the end, I will be asking some questions about the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Now, just to clarify what's going on here, Jill will be speaker number 1, and she will be evaluated by Dr. Gerald Stevens. Samir is our second speaker. He will be evaluated by Nancy Ferry, seeing as how she is still an evaluator. Now, before I turn it over to table topics, I want to launch into a little bit of my story here. As I stated, I effectively finished my working career in 2009 when Pfeiffer's closed. And up until that point, I'd been working in the QC lab. Now, I was doing tests on product. It wasn't just busy work. I was analyzing vinegar, acids, salt, different parameters of the product. And our exposure to computers back then was minimal. The front office didn't even use computers. They had people whose job was to lay out everybody's name on a table and sort out who was going to be working where any given day. Then all of a sudden they decided they were going to get modern. They decided they were going to start computerizing inventory. They established a job called the checker. His job was at the end of the line. As a skid of glass came in for the line, he recorded that. As a skid of finished product went out, he recorded that. This produced a big hoopla in the plant. The union wanted the most money they could possibly get for it. And the plant said, no, this is simple data entry. We're not going there. So they finally got that ironed out. Then after a while, they realized that they needed more input on this. So they wanted us in the lab to start entering data in the computer in the lab as we tested batches. Well, a couple of problems with that. One, I'd never used a computer in my life to this point. And secondly, I had all I could do to keep the tests going up to date. And a lot of times you get backlogged, and some of the other people in the lab come over and help. That's just the way it was. And we all did it for each other. So I said, when are we supposed to enter this data? Oh, you got to do that besides your job. And I said, when is there time to do this? And they refused to accept it. You have to do it. Is somebody going to train us how to do this? Yes, they sent someone from Ohio up to show everybody in the lab how to do this. Well, as most of you know, knowing a skill and teaching it are two different skill sets. This person could not understand that I had never used a computer in my life, and everything she was saying was in a foreign language to me. She just kept saying it over and over and said, I don't know what you're talking about. You have to explain your terms. Well, I got through that somehow, and that was my initial exposure to computers. They wouldn't even tell us how to fix anything. That had to go back to the front office and let them fix it, and we get yelled at for messing it up. This is a great system. But I'll get back into some of this and where I've been since then with all this. So let's get into table topics with Mike Licata.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. I love the theme. I think it's right, Steve. I think it's doing things in a digital age. I think that this experience has kind of fast forwarded a lot of learning for a lot of older people. So I always should remind everyone that our table topics are 1.5 to 2 minutes, and that I ask you to use the word paradigm for the word of the day to be eligible for voting. So with that, I will ask Tom Moran this morning, what's the biggest change that you've had in regards to technology during this experience? Tom Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. The biggest experience I've had is I've had to unflatten my learning curve. I've had to take it up a notch here and to actually go in and try some things. I'm not someone who is adverse to not changing or not trying new things. I'm open to it, and I've noticed that a lot of people who don't adapt are people who are unwilling to adapt. First of all, they resent having to change anything that might show an improvement somewhere. Not that the improvement is the problem. It's just that it's what us Toastmasters refer to as coming out of your comfort zone. This Zoom meetings have been a real eye-opener for me because not only do I use them here for Toastmasters, I also use them I have several doctor's appointments, and I use them for those. I noticed my friend David posted the other day that he was sitting in his car waiting for his doctor to let him know that he could come in the office. Now, I sit at home like Marilyn Beam, and I wait for my doctor to let me in. Now, I'm very comfortable at home, and I'm very comfortable talking to the doctor over the Zoom, and it works out so much better. I have not seen a downside to it yet, and I do enjoy it, and I think the reason is because I'm open to it. I don't resent it at all. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, or Table Topics Master. Oh, did I say the word paradigm? Yes, I believe I did. Well, at least I referenced it in my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I know a lot of reopening is starting to happen, and I think that it's important for us to be excited, but there are some reservations. I'm going to turn to Phil Russell now. Phil, what are you looking forward to the most as some normalcy returns and you can get away from all of these changes? Phil Russell.
I live in this paradigm. I have so little to do and so much time to do it that I don't know which way to turn. I don't know whether to go out into the yard and work or work in the house, or maybe just sit down, have a cup of coffee, and smoke a cigar. However, yesterday we did have something important to do. We found an undisclosed golf course that has a bar open, and we are able to sit and socialize. However, we did go out and play 9 holes. I won, of course. I had the highest score. Some people ask me, isn't it that backwards? And I says, not in my world. And one of the people we were playing with, but they were behind us, was Dave and my friend Peter. And we could tell they were both walking in different directions, talking to someone. Peter, we know, was somebody from a different universe, or maybe just an imaginary friend. Now, Dave, he was looking for somehow to get that perfect shot off, talking to himself to slow down and enjoy the game. And what a wonderful experience it was. We all got through it. We had more fun. And actually, we saw the sky was as blue as could be when it was supposed to rain. It got a little bit warm at the 9th hole, but we didn't care. Next hole was the 10th hole, where we could stop and have a few adult beverages. And in this undisclosed location, we don't want to let anybody know, because I think they might be twisting things a little bit, which is in our favor, because we can't go to other golf courses because they are not serving adult beverages. So our paradigm was, we have so little to do and so much time to do it that we're having fun doing it. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Phil. That's a good story. Looking forward, they announced yesterday that restaurants and bars can actually serve outdoors. So I'm very much looking forward to an outdoor bar experience soon. So I concur with that. Next, I'll ask our newest member, Alexis. I know I want to thank you and give you a lot of credit for joining our club during this strange time. And I think that once we get going at Tom's Diner, you're going to get the full Toastmasters experience of camaraderie and the uniqueness of a breakfast experience at Toastmasters. So I want to ask you, what are you looking forward to as things continue to open? To what do you hope you can carry over from this whole pandemic experience? Alexis.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think that going back to normal is a paradigm. I don't know what normal is going to be anymore. I think what we think of as going back to normal is going to be changed forever. I'm personally looking forward to being able to socialize in a group personally, face to face with people. I've been doing a lot of web interviews and meetings and talking to my family on the phone and kind of being afraid still. I'm looking forward to not having that anxiety and that fear when I go out in a group. I'm looking forward to doing things together as a family with my kids. Like, even there's those little things that I'm starting to see. Like, we used to go to Tasty Treat and sit at the benches and just being outside enjoying our ice cream together. And I didn't want to. We went together and sat in the car, and it's just not the same. It's not the same experience. There's other things that we are starting to do, like take trails, and I miss going to the gym because I am starting to physically deteriorate. I feel it. And it's frustrating because I had gotten to the point where I wasn't in as much pain, and now I'm starting to feel that those aches and pains come back, and it's terrifying to me. Not that I can't do things at home, it's just I don't have the space or the motivation. So those are the things I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to. Thank you, Tabletop Toastmaster.
Thank you, Alexis. I will call on Jackie Kenny for a timers report. I guess Jackie's not there. I will go to Jen Zappa with a word report.
Jackie is there. I think she was just on mute, but all
Yeah.
three of our contestants used it, so we're good.
Okay. And Tom Moran's time was 1 minute 52 seconds. Phil came in at 2 minutes 23 seconds, and Alexis at 2 minutes 7 seconds. So they were all within the paradigm for table topics.
Thank you, Madam Timer. And I will turn the meeting back over to Steve Smith. Thank you very much.
Okay, I just voted. Now, as I said, where I worked, I had very minimal exposure to computers. And along about this time, Mike Reinbold was a godsend because he was into all things computer and he helped me learn how to do something. The one thing he taught me that has stayed with me is for no matter what you want to do on the computer, there's at least 2 ways to do it. Because I had other people trying to teach me how to do this, and they were like tunnel vision. There's only one way to do this, there's only one way to do that. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to make sense. But that just confused me even further. Mike, thank God, tried to straighten me out, which is why I find it a bit odd that he's not taking part in these Zoom meetings, but that's his decision to make. Now, one of the problems is I've never been really interested in computers. Some people like Mike, the newest thing that comes out, they love it and they're right into it. It just doesn't hold my interest. That's part of the problem. It's not one of my skill sets. I love astronomy. I can spend all night under the night sky. I love gardening, which is what I'm doing right now, keeping busy. I have like 90 tomato plants to set today yet. So that's the fact that we can't go anywhere and do anything doesn't bother me at all right now. We've got plenty of things to do in this yard. And they don't involve the computer, which is why I'm fine. And all of a sudden, you're running the meeting this week. What? And we'll see what we can do with this, knowing this is not strong in my skill set. But I jumped in with both feet. And I'm hoping to get through this. So far, it's been not too bad, despite my ignorance of how any of this works. So let's launch into our speaking program. Our first speaker today will be Jill. And she is evaluated by Dr. Gerald Stevens. Is he handy to tell us what she's going to talk about?
I am, Steve.
Ah.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I don't think we have any guests today. At least I didn't hear about any. And most importantly, who I'm evaluating at this point, Jill. Jill is speaking today. I'm happy to hear that. I don't think it's a paradigm shift, however, because the title is Brown to Green. So there's been a little theme with Jill's speeches lately. So I'm feeling it's around the same topic, but we'll find out. I'm not sure what manual it is. I don't have the form, but I will wing it and give her feedback. And timing is a little longer. I'm not sure what that is. It didn't say that online. So if you could help me out with that, Steve, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Jill's time will be 15 to 20 minutes. And I do have her title, From Brown to Green. Now shut me up.
Before you start timing, Jackie, give me the green light at 12, the yellow light at 16, and the red at 20. I am going to, for everybody, this is a question and answer. So when hopefully everybody comes up with some questions to ask. With that, I will jump into my speech. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, other fellow Toastmasters, since we have no guests. My speech this morning is from brown to green. what I'm talking about is what's in my background here. Brown lawns, to green lawns. They take a very considerable normal paradigm. There's two main facets: soil preparation and your grass seed. It doesn't matter how much you have, your soil preparation has to be well done. You have to, depending on what the soil looks like, you have to till it. You may have to actually do some serious digging, which you saw from the first picture we did. I can show you some other pictures here. This is a before picture. This is last summer. We had 6 trees removed out of there. There's only 3 left of the 9 that were there. And that's why we have had such a mess. Taking down 6 trees means we had 6 stumps. With having the tractor available, we did not pay to have someone grind them down. We dug them out. My dad had fun doing that, I think. A couple of them were very large, and they took some time, and they made a mess. Our lawn sat there looking horrible from February until around the beginning of May, when it finally dried up enough that Steve was able to go out and start rototilling it and smoothing it out. And finally he had it rototilled and smoothed. And before that, I had actually added some topsoil with the tractor to a few areas that were really low. Like I said, he had it rototilled, he smoothed it out with the rake. At that point, it was time to put grass seed down. Grass seed is a very interesting thing that people don't know about. There are 2 basic types of grass seed in your lawns, for most lawns. And you have to pay attention to what you're buying, because it makes a big difference in what you get. If you buy grass seed that says it's quick grow, it says quick grow, you know what it does? It grows quick. And then it dies quickly too, because most of the time that's annual ryegrass. And annual ryegrass does not grow nicely. It grows once and then it dies. Then there are perennials. Now perennials, there are several types of grass seed. The primary ones for lawns are Kentucky bluegrass, fescues, and ryegrasses, perennial ryegrasses. The way to find out what you have in the bag of grass seed that you get is by looking at this label here that I'm stepping aside for. Now this label shows that the mix that we got has about 40% Fargo Kentucky bluegrass, which this is an improved variety of original bluegrass. It has 19% of regular Kentucky bluegrass. It has 15% blackstone perennial ryegrass. Perennial ryegrass is another one of those ones that can be, if you buy just plain perennial ryegrass, it's a very coarse grass. It's thick bladed, it's kind of ugly, really. But if you get one of the ones that has a name in front of it, like Blackstone or Flash, which is the other one on here, they're nice fine bladed ryegrass mixes. Those 2 make up 29% of the mix. And then we've got some Boreal creeping red fescue, which creeping red fescue is a grass seed that is meant for shade, although it's not really meant for shade. It's meant for dry areas. When I say dry areas, what I'm saying is that grass seed isn't specifically that it doesn't grow in shade, but when you have shade, you have no rain. How many times has anybody sat under a tree because it was raining and they didn't want to get wet? Well, the soil isn't getting wet either. So that's the main problem with soil under a tree. It's not the fact that it's shady, it's the fact that it's dry. And fescues are very good for dry areas. If you buy, there are some grass seed mixes out there now that are not completely grass seed. If you look at the grass seed, and there's one that's 10 pounds for $30, another one is 10 pounds for $15. Take a good look at it because it's probably got about 15 pounds of filler material. And in that case, the grass seed has been coated to help it stay moist. It is a help, but you are paying dearly for that privilege. Once you get your grass seed, and you got your soil all put together, all nice and smooth, and it looks pretty, not a lot of lumps in it, then you start spreading your grass seed. The best way to spread your grass seed, if you're doing a big area, you're probably going to use a spreader of some sort. So you have to set the spreader to the grass seed, like numbers. If you're using a spreader, you want to go across the lawn in perpendicular directions. So you go across the lawn one direction, get it all done, then go across the lawn using the other direction. That way you get good coverage. If most grass seeds on a barren lawn do about 200 square feet per pound. A lot of people tend to put grass seed on heavy. If you are that type of person and you've measured your lawn and you think, oh, 3 pounds of grass seed is plenty because I only have 500 square feet, you might be a person that needs to buy 5 or 6 pounds instead. I can't tell you the number of times that I had people come in my store and buy second and third bags because they put it on heavy. After you've got the grass seed down, you should take a little bit of a rake, just a leaf rake, a spring rake, and just lightly rake it in. Now, this is a lot of work. All of this has been a lot of work up until now. And after you've got it all lightly raked in, if you have it, your best bet at that point is to use a roller on it. And this will help pack the grass seed in. That helps out a lot because, for one thing, grass seed can be turned into expensive bird seed as well. Birds do enjoy eating grass seed as they find it out there. After you've got it all raked in, you can do one of two things. Well, you're going to do one of them for sure. You're going to pray for rain at the right level. If you get too much rain, it might wash the grass seed away. And the grass seed might go if you got a slope. And you end up with a whole pile of grass seed at the bottom of the slope and none at the top. Or you can use a sprinkler, depending on the amount of area. That may take a lot of space. It may take a lot of water. It may take a lot of time. You can also put a mulch surface on it. The common one is chopped up straw. That works usually quite well, although it can be a pain to take off if you put it on too heavy. You might need to rake it off. It might be, you might have it so it just melts in and decomposes right away, but then again, it might need to be raked off. And that can be a pain. You don't want to mow the lawn until it gets a lot of growth. If you are lucky and you have done everything well, you actually will get a lawn that is like this one. This is our lawn last night. Steve put the seed on about the 1st of May, but then we had about 3 weeks of dry. And we sat there watching the grass seeds sit there. And my dad would drive by and say, "I think I see green." And I wondered where his eyes were. But he was right eventually, and it's looking pretty good. And we don't have a lot of weeds either, which is really good. It's very, very common to get a lot of dandelions and stuff in your lawn when you reseed it. If you do not want dandelions and you are actually going to go the sterile, no lawn, nothing but green grass in my lawn route, you do not want to use any sort of weed killer in your lawn until the rule of thumb is you have mowed it 3 times. And that's not 3 marginal mowings, that's 3 good mowings. In the old days, in order to get a lawn like this, you would have to sprinkle it all the time. Or the other thing is, in the old days, they actually planted lawns full of white clover, which is a very fine clover. It grows very short, makes a pretty little white flower, and it doesn't get brown in the summer, where all of our cool season grasses that we use around here do get brown in the summer. They go into a state of dormancy. Hopefully, after all of this, your lawn looks good. Ours has got a little ways to grow. If you really take a good look at that, it's still thin in a few areas, but I am very, very impressed. Steve followed my dad's directions to the T. And I'm sure Dad is proud of himself for that too. And for that reason, I think we have a lawn. Now, does anybody have any questions? I will open the floor up to questions at this point.
Sure. I had 3 homes built. 2 of them had already lawn in it. 3rd one had mud all over it. So I had a choice to make grass seed and all the hard work you just described. Instead of, I bought the sods, you know, the one that you roll over.
Yes.
And prepare lawn. Do you have any idea what's the good and bad of those lawns?
Sod is a very good product if you have the ability to make sure it stays wet when you put it on and that it doesn't dry out before you put it on. It has to be, because of the fact that it's rolled up off the soil and it has about 1 inch, 2 inches of soil with it. If it dries out, you're going to lose it. So you have to get it down, you have to tamp it down. It is an instant lawn. Within a couple weeks, it's either going to work or it's not. You know,
Yeah, this was my new paradigm, instant lawn.
Instant lawn, yes. Sod is commonly used in athletic fields if they aren't artificial turf. That answer your question? Okay, any other questions? Tracy.
Oh, for lawns that have a lot of weeds, do you have any suggestions for something a little bit more natural to help cure those weeds?
One thing you can do is let the grass grow a little taller between mowings. And you can actually mow the weeds out over time. believe it or not. It takes a long time, but within time, you will mow the weeds out to some extent. As far as a natural, the chemicals that are out there, whether they're listed as organic or not organic, they're all chemicals. You know, even if you put vinegar down to kill poison ivy, it's still vinegar. It's still poisoning the soil in one way or another. So if you really need to get rid of all your weeds, one thing you might try for a year or two is to try letting mowing work it out, and fertilizing too. Fertilizing is very important as far as putting in a lawn goes. Does that answer your question? Anybody else? And Jen Zappla says dandelions aren't weeds, and I agree with her. And Steve definitely agrees with her. He loves those yellow flowers.
Jill,
Marty
I have
has
a question. Marty.
Yep.
Question.
Yes, Marty.
I have a friend that has a front yard that's shaded. And actually early this spring, it must have been in March, I had a hand tool and I trying to think of the name of it. I basically pulled up all the old dried up grass.
You thatched it.
Pardon?
You dethatched it.
Dethatched the lawn. I did that. And it seems that the lawn, I looked at it the other day and it seems like some of the grass is rejuvenated because of that. Well, what would you do in that instance where you have a shaded area and it's an old lawn? It's actually in a home where I think of the old Licata homestead, David. David knows where I mean. Anyway, what would you recommend for a shaded area as far as to get the grass growing and to rejuvenate the lawn other than dethatching it?
Well, dethatching was a very, very good first step. It's very possible the soil is very compacted. So dethatching it loosens it up, spreads it out. You might want to put some more grass seed down. Do that right after you dethatch it because it helps the grass seed reach down into the soil. Make sure and get a grass seed that's labeled as being for shade because then it is actually for the dry areas. Water it in, fertilize it because trees not only rob water, they rob nutrients too. Okay. But dethatching, loosening up the soil underneath is a big thing because the soil does have a tendency to get compacted when there's no grass there.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Got time for one more question. Anybody? Beth has a question.
Do you recommend rolling the lawn?
No.
Okay.
Rolling compacts the lawn. And if you listen to what I just said about under the trees and loosening up the soil, I mean, there are times that you might want to roll it lightly, but when you hear of somebody that's going to bring a 1-ton roller in or something to roll the lawn, that's bad and it's completely unrecommended. And if you find a lawn care service that's part of their service, they aren't really good horticulturists.
Okay.
Okay?
Good. Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have today for questions. So if anybody else has any, you can send me a chat message. And that being that, I will hand back off to Mr. Toastmaster.
Formative. Now, my opinion is, I agree. I like dandelions, and there's plantains and many other common weeds that grow in a yard, and I think it gives a yard character. I don't like to see a yard that's 100% grass because I know what you got to do to make it 100% grass, and that's just not good for the environment. That's my 2 cents. Yeah. Now, our second speaker today will be Samir, and he's evaluated by Nancy Ferry. I hope.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay.
I'm on my phone, so it makes it much more difficult.
Okay.
And I do not have any information about Samir's speech that I know of. I didn't receive anything. So I will ask him to tell us what the purpose of his speech is and what he would like me to look for.
Sure. So my speech is titled "My Time as a Consulting Protege." The speech is part of the last project in the second level of leadership development, that pathway within pathways, and it's basically just relaying a time that you were a protege, and also kind of going over some of the aspects in which you were able to learn from a mentor. So that's my speech, and the time is 5 to 7 minutes. I'm not exactly sure if there are any specific items that you should look for. I looked at the evaluation, and it looked pretty standard compared to other evaluations, which you can also download from the AM Lockport site. I believe that Len has that uploaded there. So yeah, I guess if no one has anything else, I'll get started. Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters. Mentoring is a very interesting aspect of most people's careers. It creates a lot of different ways for people to learn, people to grow. They can get personal information from other people's experiences. They can get wisdom and a more informed perspective, develop successful strategies by which people can work with them more effectively, and they can match their strengths to other weaknesses, as well as incorporating feedback and generally benefiting from a more knowledgeable presence on one's team. In my career, I initially started in the IT consulting industry, specifically outsourcing. My first job, I was supposed to move to LA, so I had everything prepared to move from Michigan to LA. When 9 days before I started, they called me while I was at Cedar Point, the America's roller coaster, as they call themselves, a really fun roller coaster theme park in Ohio. And they basically said, well, you can either take some severance or move to the opposite coast and move to Washington, D.C. Now, me not having worked at all yet, I was pretty excited to take a bunch of severance for not having worked a day. But unfortunately for me and my future plans to live in LA, my parents prevailed upon me to end up taking the job for a small pay bump, less than I would have gotten from just the severance, to take the actual job in DC. And that set the course of my life. The federal IT consulting industry is a very large component of the overall economy in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region, and I was now a part of that. It was pretty interesting to see this new type of paradigm where many ultimately governmental functions end up getting outsourced. Those functions themselves require a lot of IT support, so there are a lot of consulting firms around the region that spring up to satisfy that need to, as Steve said, migrate people from the analog to the digital world in whatever various capacities across all levels of government. It's also ironic because every job I'd ever had until moving to this area was one where I was provided a work laptop from day one. But then when I learned what a precious commodity a workplace provided computing platform was compared to my prior knowledge organization based paradigm, I had a bit of an inverse experience because it felt like going from a digital world and migrating into the analog world of Western New York, trying to optimize myself to fit better into the world around me. My first boss at this consulting firm, at my first job, he had a specific mad scientist laugh that I'll never forget, as he micromanaged us to produce exquisite dashboards that our superiors saw that ended up actually getting him a promotion within my first 6 months at the company. My next boss was a bit more hands-off, but he did also provide me a lot of mentoring on how to analyze profit and loss statements, looking specifically for line items that we could reduce or improve, as well as making predictions on where future projects will be and then revising those on a continuous basis. It also helped me understand the futility of some projects when you have a team that either will or won't work with you, and how sometimes even if the team won't work with you, you have to persevere continuously and prevail upon them that, hey, this is something we can do, not just something we can't do. The next most significant mentoring protege experience I had was probably when I worked for my most well-known boss to any of my friends, Greg, who is quite the businessman character. In the winter of 2012, I ended up responding to, ironically enough, a Craigslist ad for a job where they contacted me within a day. And then I had my first interview and I actually had to do something. I actually had to solve a problem for them on my future mentor's laptop as part of the interview. It was really interesting and definitely a much more direct way of doing business than I had expected otherwise. And that was really a good intro to the world of small business, because in the world of small business, you have to do everything yourself. And there's, of course, tons of paperwork to do all the time. But after that first interview, within a week, I had my job offer. And then my first day was in another 2 weeks. And on that first day was really my main intro to the world of consulting, where I had to do 13 hours of analysis next to my boss. And I realized, hey, they really are paying me a salary, not hourly, for a reason. The next few weeks involved more detailed analysis, which seemed like we were essentially at the beck and call of our contracting officer's technical representative, as they call it, because the government isn't allowed to have personal services contracts, which is why you're not supposed to task staff with doing things like grabbing your dry cleaning. And if you do, you might find yourself the subject of a congressional hearing. Unfortunately, this contracting officer's technical representative was a bit less scrupulous than most, being a political employee, and he had some choice words for us whenever we tried to get treated fairly. Unfortunately for him, that kind of language was not the best way to execute a federal contract, and the contracting officer themselves, once they found out about his behavior, ended up switching him off, and we got a much more reasonable person to work with. Over time, this morphed into more of a project proposal and ad hoc role, much more akin to the nature of a normal mid-career consultant. And I gained a lot of experience and opportunities to learn from my mentor about various aspects of the Small Business Administration and specific programs designed to aid small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses. One of the main things I learned from this protege was that relationships and keeping in touch are key. The gift of gab is an important skill to hone, as well as attention to detail and making sure you take the proper time to ensure that your interfacing with others is high quality, well-reasoned, and thought out. Whereas I had always thought of it a huge waste of time to spend more than a minute proofreading an email, the many circular drafts we circulated amongst ourselves to optimize our communications with the federal government showed me that there is actually a method to the madness, and there's a lot to be learned through precise application of one's words. Thank you, Toastmasters.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you. I have a couple more points to make before I wrap up my dissertation today about why I don't like computers. Now, it becomes necessary to communicate because I belong to numerous organizations, the Lions Club, Toastmasters, my astronomy club, to name a few. So I did have to learn how to email, to receive and send emails, but that's about the extent of it. You talk about adding attachments and doing it. I have no idea how to do that. I can answer an email. You send me something and I will reply to you. I can get that much done. And also, I wish to say, there is some advantage to having an analog brain. When I was working, We had red wine vinegar. Now they wanted to make sure every plant had the same color product. So they sent us an old meter to record the actual frequency of the red light in the red wine vinegar. So we know it was the same shade of red. It was an old analog scale. Nobody knew how to use it but me. It has what we called a mirrored scale, and nobody knew what that was. If you can picture the face of an old scale, there's your indicator dial. Behind that, there's a curved mirror, narrow band of curved meter going from the top to the bottom. Nobody knew what that was for. It's a simple device, but it serves a very important purpose. When you look down at the needle, you straighten your head so that you cannot see the reflection of the needle. Then you're getting an accurate reading. Otherwise, you're getting your skewed to the left or the right if you can see the reflection. So looking straight down, zeroing the reflection, you get an accurate reading off that meter. I took delight in the fact that nobody in the plant knew what that was but me. So there are some benefits to being old. So now we'll launch into our evaluation portion. And first
we had a timers report, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said, thank you, sir. Yeah, can we have a timers report on our two speakers?
Yes, you may. Both speakers made their time. Jill came in at 19 minutes and 37 seconds, including her question period. And Samir was 7 minutes and 16 seconds.
Okay, so now thank you for keeping me on track there, Eric. Now we'll go to the evaluation portion. Dr. Gerald, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, and especially Jill. Jill, you brought us a longer speech today, so you decided to challenge yourself a little bit, so that's kind of exciting. You walked us through a timely topic, I think, in this season. I know I personally have struggled with this in my household for growing grass. It sounds like something simple, but boy, is it not. I actually it grows so well this year. Maybe it's the amount of rain and whatnot. I actually have people stopping by the house and actually looking at my grass. And my neighbors have commented, it looks really good. But it took me many, many years to figure it out. And you delivered to us in the speech today, so hopefully that can help some of our fellow Toastmasters grow a fine lawn. You had nice visuals today. You're prepared. Extremely important to prepare and practice. So you did that. You had nice backgrounds, kept us engaged with the visuals. Very informative, many tips. Different types of grass seeds. Some people might not even know there's different types of grass seeds. For different areas, for different shades, perennials. I experienced that. Grew one good one here, gone the next. Didn't know that at all. I spent a lot of money over the years trying to grow this grass, and different parts of the lawn require different things. So you brought that to us today. So we appreciate all those tips for sure. In regards to improvement, I would probably separate the timing of the question and answer period in regards to when the speech ends and when the questions start. So tell the timer that ahead of time to separate that a little bit. I would probably start also with a question. Who has trouble growing grass? I certainly would have been raising my hand for sure. Gestures were natural. There were some there. You have improved tremendously in regards to ahs and ums, I would say. Your overall flow of your speech was very good. And you also mentioned you own a store. That's an opportunity, I would say, to promote your store if you do sell things to the public, because I did not know the name of the store. I did not know you owned a store. Hopefully it is a regular business. I do know that you had some equipment you showed in a different speech, but I did not know you sold these kind of things. Other pros I would say that you had with your speech, you didn't really need to, what should I say, you handled your question and answer period well. You provided us with a ton more tips. I actually took notes during this speech, believe it or not, and talked about a spreader in different directions. There's a few things that I was looking for as well, but I didn't want to put those questions out there for you because other people are participating. Sometimes in the question and answer, people do kind of put a mold, we'll say, in regards to starting off the questions. I don't know if you did that, but for other speakers, that could be very useful. So thank you so much. And I did not see a paradigm shift today. So thank you so much, Jill. I look forward to your future speeches. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our second evaluator evaluating Samir will be Nancy Ferry. Are you ready?
I am. Can I be heard okay? Just tech, okay. Samir, my time as a consulting protege, you had me peeked at the title, so I was interested right from the very beginning. You had a great background. It was pleasant. It wasn't too distracting. You used the word of the day. Your personal story was very appealing in the way you spoke. Some of your previous speeches have been more technical and read, but you interacted, you engaged. You could see that you knew your stories and you were sharing them with us, which makes much better eye contact and engagement. They were well organized. They moved smoothly. I believe that you engaged the audience by having interesting stories that people hadn't heard, your experiences of learning, your attention to detail, the engaging with others and optimizing communication were great lessons for all of us to be able to use. It was very informational. A few tips. There were a few so's. I won't take Edna's role, but I know she's not watching, so I will take care of that for you. Also, there was a bit of wiggling in your chair, and I know you were talking like this, but when you were wiggling, it made the background wiggle and you wiggled. So in person, that's fine, but on the video, it comes out a little bit distracting. The end was a bit abrupt. I don't know if you were running out of time and you just wrapped up really quickly. The last thing you were talking about was optimizing communication, and it was great, except it just ended. So, and also a thank you is not necessary because we're thanking you for being here. It was a methodical presentation. Watching you grow in your speeches is exciting. I see you developing a comfort level in your speaking, a comfort level with Toastmasters. Suggest that you send the information for evaluating ahead of time if you know who your evaluator is. And all in all, I'd say it was well organized and a great speech.
Thanks. That was great evaluation.
Both of our evaluators, I think, made time today. What is our buffer for evaluations? Is it 30 seconds? Gerald came in at 3:29, so he qualifies, and Nancy at 2 minutes 46 seconds.
I can do mine.
I think, wait, geez, okay, we're voting. Do that.
Steve can't unmute himself. There he goes.
What?
You're unmuted.
I'm unmuted now. Okay.
I love the new voting system. This is so
I can't hear anybody else though. Waiting for me? Okay. I hope you can hear me here. This just points up my ignorance of all of this stuff. We voted, so next I will introduce our general evaluator, Larry McKenzie. Tell me how I did today. Larry?
Thank you, Steve. First of all, I want to. You can't hear me.
Now I can.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Steve. I want to congratulate you, number one, on your ability to, first of all, engage us in our meeting today with this technology. And I know your theme was, well, Marty's coming back in. Sorry about that.
No, I'm hearing it from your machine. Mine's
Your
still, I
theme
can't
today
hear.
was your theme today was analog brain with a digital world, and I want to thank you for that. And it brought some new light to everyone. The meeting started on time, and with filling roles, you did that quite efficiently. I know that with Len dropping out as an evaluator yesterday, it did switch some of our evaluators around, and that also caused a little bit of confusion because Nancy was supposed to evaluate Kate, and then we had a longer speech, so we only went with two. So with that, one of the things that I would recommend is that our speakers and everyone, please check the agenda throughout the week. That is what it's there for. It's a little bit different than when we're at Tom's, when we can pass the agenda around at the meeting and everyone has an opportunity to take a look at that. The only thing is here, we have to basically go online to the Free Toast host, log in, and check the evaluators or the speakers or whatever role you have. I know that there's an email that is sent out to everyone from the Toastmaster of the Week, but please check that when you do get that email to make sure that if you have a role that you take part in that. Today's meeting, we had two evaluators for our two speeches, Dr. Gerald and also Nancy. Dr. Gerald evaluated Jill's speech today, and Jill had a longer speech, and you hit on a lot of the positives throughout the speech that Jill demonstrated. One of the things that I would recommend to add to what Dr. Gerald said was, whenever you're using a virtual background, sometimes it can be distracting within the context of doing a virtual speech, because of the fact that if the lighting, if you notice on mine right here, it starts to bleed out. And what happens is that distracts from the attention to your speech. You did have great eye contact with the camera. One of the things that was asked or mentioned by Gerald was to ask a question at the beginning of your speech. Great feedback with that. One of the things that I would have liked to hear too, and you did mention in regards to the store, and great use of the technology with using the virtual screen within your speech, something we don't have an opportunity to do at Tom's Diner. One of the things that I would recommend also throughout your speech is to bring the audience in throughout and set them up for the question and answer at the back end. So when you were touching on different topics, plant a seed to go along with your theme, plant a seed with them as to, have you ever experienced these problems in your own home or in your own lawn? We'll have some question and answers at the end where you'll be able to let me help you with that. So please jot down your questions. And it brings the audience in and out, especially with a long speech, to add also some dialogue or something with that. Your vocal, your eye contact with the camera, excellent. Great job, Jill, with presenting a longer speech, and your comfortability and the green screen behind you, kudos to that. Samir, I must say that Nancy hit on a lot of the things that I also thought with your speech. She was very thorough. Tips on the grammar, great. The wiggling can be distracting. When somebody's moving, it takes away from the speech and the focus. And with the virtual, any slight movement, even the eye contact, your eyes to the camera, you were looking to your right a little bit. So we were kind of getting a side view. So be aware that the camera is your audience. Speak to your camera. And the wiggling, obviously, that's a thing where it can also be distracting. Samira, your vocal variety and your cadence has improved immensely. You've slowed down your speaking. Great job. And you've taken some feedback and through evaluations, and you've used that in your speeches. And you've been working forward with your Pathways program. And the virtual background is also something that you can work with, also with lighting, because of the fact that if you have a light that you can light behind you whenever you're using a virtual background, have something that lights the back behind you, which will also take away that blurriness that comes out there. But all in all, great job with your speech today, and our evaluators, wonderful job. Steve, would you like to call reports, or would you like me to do that for you? Let me find Steve.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Thanks, Steve. All right, let's go with our reports this morning. And with that, I have to put my glasses on to be able to read. Let's see. We will go to our Master. Please welcome Sylvia Baptiste, our Master.
Well, thank you for having me come back and do this. This has been a little challenge. I noticed today but I also noticed long and like people were thinking of going to say but they continued as long ands. There's quite a few of those. Steve had a few as. Carol Ann had a couple. Mike Licata had one. Smear had the most at the beginning of doing his evaluation, but when he started his speech, it was so smooth and done nicely that no Oz was going to sneak in there. Gerald Stevens had a few. Larry McKenzie even had a few, and he had some long ands, long ands. Couple so's, I did count a few of those. Tom Moran had 2 A's. I think I hit everyone that I wrote down. Other than that, it was a good day.
Thank you so much. Our next report, our grammarian, and that would be Tracy.
Thank you, General Evaluator. I have to start off with myself. I started off introducing my role, and I really fumbled over my words talking about visions of pictures when I really should have said I was painting a picture with my words. After that, I tried to keep track of so's. I'm not an Edna Stubbs. I only heard about 7 or 8 of those. Our biggest problem today was a lot of start overs. Just about every speaker had to start over. Steve, you had a justa and strong in my skill set instead of a strong item or a strong point in my skill set. Phil, you had a great phrase, so little to do and so much time to do it. I thought that was fantastic. Alexis, you said take trails instead of take to the trails. And Jill, you had a background, and those pictures were worth 1,000 words. They did paint that picture. And that's my report.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Next, our gesture master, Marty.
Hey, Larry. Thank you, Larry. My paradigm as gesture master this morning is as follows. We'll start with our Toastmaster, Steve Smith. I enjoyed your body movement, Steve, and your hand gestures when you were showing us how, when you were working at Pfeiffer Foods, you were showing how to properly read a scale. I thought that was interesting, and you used good gestures. Tom Moran, and Phil, and Alexis all had good facial gestures during their table topics, impromptu speaking this morning. Jill had some good facial expressions. I was actually looking for some more hand gestures, Jill, but you had some good facial expressions, gestures when you're talking about reseeding the lawn, your lawn. And Samir, you had some good hand gestures when you're talking about what you learned from your protege. That wraps up my report. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Marty. Now may we have, before we do our word of the day, let's have our quizmaster, Carol.
I think everyone needs to unmute if you want to answer to her.
Yep, I'm working on that right now. I have lost Carol.
She's there. She's
I'm
there.
here.
There you are.
Okay. Who's on the pledge there? Who was
Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, he was talking about it, but who originally?
Red Skelton.
Okay. Where did Steve work?
Pfeiffer.
How many tomato plants does he have?
90.
90.
Oh.
Well, 90 today.
Actually, there's quite a few more than that.
And what 2 steps do you need to go from, did Jill tell us, to go from brown to green?
Lawn preparation and seeding.
Right. And how many trees do they have left?
3.
Okay. And what is used for mulch sometimes?
Hay. Chopped hay.
Straw.
Straw. Okay.
We have seeds.
What type of job does Shamir have?
Consultant.
Then?
Information technology.
Okay.
The consultant.
And consulting, right. And where was his first job supposed to be, and where did he end up working?
LA and DC.
Right.
Oh my God.
Okay, everyone listened well.
Thank you, Carol. May we please have our word master report on how we did with Paradigm this morning.
We actually did quite well with Paradigm, and Steve has clearly made a paradigm shift, moving from his world of no computers to being Toastmaster virtually today. I heard Tracy, Larry, Mark, Mokles, Tom, Phil, Alexis, Gerald, Samir, and Marty all use the word, which is more than half of the people who spoke today. And Jill says she used it. I don't know if I missed anyone else. And I'm going to give Mokles the winner for 3 uses in text messaging and 1 use verbally for most uses of Paradigm today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Yes, Mokles also added some things now into the chat. One of the things that's a great asset with using Zoom is the ability to use the chat on the side. If you're not familiar with how to use the chat, please let me know after the meeting or what have you. We can work with you with that, but make sure that you also send a little message to our speakers and also our table topics speakers to let them know how well they did. Are there any announcements this morning before we close our meeting?
Yes, I have an announcement.
Go ahead, Marty.
Larry. Next week, Jackie, Kenny, and I are changing roles. Is that correct, Jackie?
Yes, I have that. You're going to be a speaker next week, Marty.
Yes, and Jackie.
I changed that on the agenda.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Speaking of that, Marty, Next week, our Toastmaster of the day will be Michael Licata. Mike will be our Toastmaster. He will be letting us know what his theme will be for the week. The other thing is that we have 2 speakers that are now planned for next week on there. We have Marty, speaker number 1, and then we have Thomas as a speaker, Thomas Houdwine. And the number 3 speaker position is open. If you are looking for a speech to be presented in your path, we do have Ryan Flory as our alternate, but if you needed a speech to
Larry?
advance forward, yes.
I would like to try it.
Okay.
That's Phil.
Phil Russell, we'll put you in as speaker number 3.
Right.
Okay.
And I'll need to know my evaluator. Thank you.
Okay. Please, speakers, also be in contact with your evaluators. This evening, we will be having a social hour at 7 p.m. tonight. I will make sure that we send out an email with that. One other thing that I wanted to touch on is that our officers list has to be submitted to Toastmasters International, because the training for the incoming officers for our next year will be June 27th. It will be a Zoom meeting, and it's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it should be an easy one for most of our incoming or new officers to attend, even if you log on. And at least we will get credit for you being there for that. Are there any other, I think, Kate, we're working on a slate of officers, which we will probably present within the next week or so for our body as a whole.
That's what I was trying to raise my hand for. So thanks
Yep.
for announcing that, Larry. Thank you. If anybody is interested, I've been reaching out to some folks over the last couple of weeks, but if you're interested in being an officer again or for the first time, please let me know. We'd like to have a good mix up of seasoned and new members.
Fantastic. And even if you've held a position in the past, to step up in the leadership role with the club would be a wonderful thing. And Dave Licata has his hand up. Dave, you have something?
I need to talk to Tom Moran during the social portion of the post Toasties.
Okay, Tom, please stay on for a few minutes after the meeting. Dave Licata would like to address you. Is there anyone else that would like to offer anything before I say a meeting adjourned?
I'd like to say something.
Jill, go right ahead, please.
I had some questions. Some people said something about my store.
Yes.
I did put it in the chat. The Wilson Fire Company effectively destroyed my store back in 2012.
What does that even mean?
And they didn't burn it.
Yeah, what does that mean?
They coveted the property. Yes. Basically an eminent domain, and they destroyed me. I lost about $300,000. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been retired with Steve since then.
Wow. Are there any further announcements that anyone would like to share with our group? I have to say, today's meeting, even with a longer speech, we have finished exactly on time. It is 8:30 a.m. We will have a post-toasty. And also remember, there will be a social hour tonight at 7. Bring your favorite cocktail. Have a drink. Phil, it'll be a good chance to have a drink online. Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for being with us this morning. If you have to leave, we bid you adieu. If you want to stay, we will be having some post-toasties.